never thought I'd hear his voice again. It came over the line one rainy Tuesday afternoon, cracking and hesitant, like a man who'd been chewing on the same guilt for years. I need your help, he said, and just like that, the air in my small kitchen turned heavy with memories I had tried to lock away. My brother. The man who had turned my life upside down. Who had taken more than money, he had taken trust, comfort, years of my patience, and now, after all that, he wanted a part of me, quite literally. I stared at the faucet dripping into the sink, the sound echoing like a metronome counting down the seconds of my hesitation. Outside, the rain tapped against the window, soft and relentless, washing the leaves in a green so vivid it made my chest ache. I wanted to hang up, to pretend I hadn't heard him. I wanted to shut the door on every phone call, every lie, every heartbreak he had left behind. But something in his voice, fragile, desperate, stirred a pulse of guilt I couldn't quite name. I hadn't spoken to him in over 7 years. I had built a life in the spaces he had left empty, quiet mornings with my coffee, my dog curled at my feet. The little garden I tended with careful hands. I had survived, or so I thought. And yet, here he was, and my heart didn't know whether to harden or break. Before that phone call, my life had a rhythm I cherished. Mornings smelled of fresh bread and coffee, evenings were soft with the scent of rain on the wooden porch. I worked at the community library, where the smell of old books wrapped around me like a familiar shawl. I had friends who knew the sound of my laugh and neighbors who waved when they saw me in the yard. Life was quiet, safe, and mine. I had 2 cats, a stubborn pair named Pepper and Sage, who demanded attention in ways that made my house feel alive. My garden, small but thriving, was a sanctuary, the rosemary bush I had planted the first spring after I finally stopped crying over his betrayals, the tulips I had coaxed from bulbs bought with my own hard-earned money. Every corner of my life had been carefully rebuilt, brick by brick, from the ruins he had left behind. And yet, the echo of his voice lingered in the empty space of my kitchen, bouncing off the walls like a stone in a well. The past clawed at me, memories sharp and insistent. I remembered the check he had bounced, the lies he had spun to friends and family, the way he had drained my trust like water from a cup. I had tried to forgive him in my own way, by walking away, by choosing silence over confrontation, but hearing him now, begging, stirred something I had not expected, a flicker of something human beneath the betrayal. I rubbed my hands over my face, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Part of me wanted to scream into the phone, to let him hear every ounce of pain he had caused. Another part of me just listened. The first clue that this wasn't just another desperate call came a few days later. He sent a message, careful, almost clinical, a medical report attached, filled with numbers and charts I barely understood. Kidney failure, it said in plain letters. My stomach turned. I could feel the metallic tang of fear on my tongue. A nausea I hadn't felt since the night he walked away with the last of my savings. I sat at my kitchen table, the rain outside now a steady drum on the roof, staring at the screen as if the answer would appear there, typed in bold letters. Do I help him? My mind wandered through the years of betrayal, the loans he never repaid, the trust he shattered, the family gatherings he had ruined with his lies. Each memory hit like a cold wind across bare skin. Yet beneath that anger, a different feeling stirred, quiet and insistent. I remembered the small boy he had been, the one who tripped over his own feet on the front porch, scraped knees, and tears streaking his face. I remembered the nights he had cried in my bedroom. And I had listened even when I wanted to run away. Was that part of him still there somewhere? I couldn't ignore it. Something in me, buried deep beneath years of resentment, whispered that life, fragile, fleeting, was not about keeping score. And still, my hand trembled over the mouse, hovering above the reply button. My chest felt tight, as though it was squeezing every ounce of courage I had. Could I save him after everything he had done? Could I forgive myself for even considering it? The revelation hit me like a punch I wasn't ready for. I called him back, heart pounding, hands gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles ached. "You need a kidney," I said slowly, testing the words as if saying them aloud might make them false. He swallowed. I could hear it over the line, that nervous, hollow sound of a man stripped bare. "Yes," he whispered. I didn't know who else to call. For a long moment, silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the hum of the refrigerator and the distant tapping of rain against the windowpane. I could feel the weight of the years pressing down, every lie, every betrayal, every broken promise. My mind raced, rehearsing every argument I might make, every reason to say no. And yet, somewhere beneath it all, there was a pang of something I had not felt in years, sorrow, pure and raw. I remembered the nights I had stayed awake worrying about him as a child, listening to the storm rage outside while he slept obliviously in the next room. I remembered his voice, small and frightened, when our parents fought, and I had held him in the quiet aftermath. How much had he changed? How much had I changed? "I don't know if I can," I said finally, my voice trembling, betraying more than I intended. "I don't know if I can forgive all of it." "I don't expect you to," he replied, voice breaking. I can't do this alone. Please. I'm begging you." The room seemed smaller suddenly, the air heavier. I felt the pull between justice and mercy, between anger and compassion, between the past that had shaped us and the future that might still be saved. My hands fell to my lap, trembling. And I realized the truth I had been avoiding: this was no longer about him. It was about me, and what kind of person I wanted to be. The next few days were a blur of appointments, tests, and quiet, tense conversations. I sat in sterile hospital rooms, listening to doctors explain blood types, tissue matches, and surgical risks. Each term felt heavy, loaded with a weight I wasn't sure I could carry. My brother's face hovered in my mind, older, thinner, more fragile than I remembered, lines etched from years of poor choices and sickness. And yet, he was still my brother. I spent nights replaying our past in my head. I remembered the day he had emptied my bank account, the look of shameless entitlement on his face, and the weeks of sleepless nights I endured trying to make ends meet. I remembered the holidays he ruined, the friends he alienated, and the moments of small, persistent betrayals that had slowly eroded my trust. The anger was still there, coiled tight, but beneath it, another feeling took root, a reluctant compassion I didn't know I had left. I called my closest friend, Marjorie, and let the tears fall while she listened, never interrupting. "He hurt you so much," she said softly, "and yet, you're thinking of helping him. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human." Her words lingered in my mind long after the call ended. Finally, the day came when the surgeon explained the process. I would be evaluated, screened, and if everything aligned, I could donate a kidney to him. Sitting in that stark white office, I realized that the decision was mine alone. No one could tell me what to do. I thought about revenge, about holding the past like a shield, about letting him face the consequences of his choices. But I also thought about life, fragile and fleeting, and the chance to do something undeniably good. I exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease slightly. "I'll do it," I whispered to the empty room, as if speaking aloud would solidify my resolve. It was the hardest, most painful yes I had ever given, but deep down, I knew it was the right one. Word of my decision spread slowly, first to a few family members, then through the community. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Some offered quiet support, nodding with understanding, while others raised eyebrows, unable to comprehend why I would help the very person who had caused me so much pain. My brother's old friends, the ones who had seen him squander chances and betray trust, called me a fool. And part of me, the part still wrapped in anger, wanted to agree with them. But then there were the small, human moments that reminded me why I had chosen compassion over vengeance. My niece, barely 12, slipped a handwritten note under my door. Thank you for being brave. Love, Lily. My neighbor, Mrs. Cartwright, brought over a tray of warm bread and said simply, some wounds need gentle hands, not hard hearts. The world outside my own anger whispered a quiet, undeniable truth. Mercy, even when undeserved, mattered more than resentment. Surgery day arrived like a storm on the horizon, inevitable, terrifying, and impossible to ignore. I remember the antiseptic smell of the hospital, the sterile chill of the sheets, the nervous flutter in my chest. That made me grip the rails of the bed as if my fingers could anchor me to courage. My brother's eyes met mine briefly before the anesthesia took hold, and I saw fear, regret, and a fragile hope all tangled together. I wanted to tell him it was okay, that the past didn't have to dictate the rest of our lives. Hours later, the surgeons came out, faces calm, masks hiding their expressions. The transplant was successful, they said. Relief hit me like a tidal wave, bringing with it tears I didn't realize I'd been holding. My brother was alive. Alive, despite the years of betrayal, despite everything. And in that moment, I understood something vital. Revenge is a heavy chain that binds the heart, but compassion, real, difficult, painful compassion, can set it free. I had given him a kidney, yes, but I had also freed myself from the prison of old grudges. Recovery was slow, measured in small victories, a deeper breath without pain, a step across the hallway without support, a smile that felt a little more genuine. My brother and I didn't rush to fill the silence with apologies. Words would come later, or maybe never fully. What mattered was presence, shared quietly in the hospital room, in the soft hum of machines, in the clink of trays being wheeled away. I watched him relearn ordinary life, the way sunlight hit the kitchen floor, the smell of coffee brewing, the sound of leaves rustling outside the window. I realized that the gift I had given was more than physical. It was the chance to rewrite the final chapters of our shared story, to leave behind the bitterness that had shadowed us for so long. We talked in fragments at first, tentative sentences brushing against old wounds. I don't deserve this, he murmured one evening, voice almost swallowed by the hum of the heater. I shook my head gently. None of us deserve kindness, sometimes, I said softly. But it exists anyway. And there it was, a simple, quiet truth that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. In those weeks, I understood that forgiveness doesn't always mean forgetting. It doesn't erase the past. But it does offer the possibility of peace, of rebuilding life on new terms. I saw him sit in the garden, gingerly watering the tulips I had planted, and I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years, relief, and yes, a fragile hope. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Not because the past had been erased, but because I had chosen mercy, and in doing so, I had healed myself as well as him. Sitting here now, in the quiet of my living room, the rain tapping gently against the windows, I reflect on everything that has passed. Life has a way of testing us, of asking whether we will carry the weight of anger or choose to release it, even when the person who hurt us most is the one asking for help. My brother and I are still learning how to navigate this new chapter, carefully. Gently, but there's a peace now that was impossible before. I've come to understand that compassion is not weakness. It is not a reward for the undeserving. It is an act of courage, a deliberate choice to step outside the prison of resentment and offer life instead of revenge. Healing does not always mean reconciliation, and forgiveness does not always erase the past. But choosing kindness, even in the hardest of moments, reshapes the heart. Would I have done it differently if the roles were reversed? Perhaps. Perhaps not. I do know this, holding on to anger can feel safe, but it is suffocating. Letting go, even just enough to give another human being a second chance at life, is liberating in ways I never imagined. Tell me in the comments. My dear, what would your heart have done if it were you? Could you offer compassion to someone who broke your trust? And if this story touched you, Don't forget to subscribe and support for more tales that remind us how fragile and beautiful family can be.